Usually we go on Fridays, but I will be out of town on Friday afternoon/evening. So figured we would do a fun one today on a Tuesday. No beer for me today or anything. We just got a Coke Zero if needed. But hopefully you guys are enjoying yourselves. Hopefully you're having a fun start to Packers training camp. Been certainly great to get out there, and there's an amazing time of year getting to see everyone along the sidelines, getting to see obviously the Packers in the first iteration of this team and our first view of it, in a real training camp atmosphere. We've got family night coming up this week. So just a fantastic time. Hall of Fame game on Thursday. No Caleb Williams, though, this Thursday. Not super shocked by that. And then, of course, we get to preseason next week, and really, really fun time overall. Per usual, we will do super chats first. So any super chats will go to the top of the list. We'll try to get to as many member questions as I can, and then we'll try to get to as many other questions that you guys have. So we'll start from the top here since there's not a ton in here quite yet, and then we'll kind of go from there. And like I said, any super chats will go to the top. Richard, right away, asking the brand questions. Appreciate you asking about the sponsor. My favorite pizza from Luigi's is the fresh dough. And either just cheese or pepperoni. Both of them are fantastic, but that fresh rising dough, I go back and forth. Sometimes I really feel like the thicker crust and I'll go with the fresh dough, but they're ultra thin crust too. Like either one of those, it depends. If you want like a little bit more of a filling meal, go with the fresh dough crust. If you want something that still filling, but like, it's going to be a little bit lighter, a little bit, that thinner crust. I go back and forth and I get both of those. I honestly, again, not joking, I literally have usually about 2 to 3 of each of those in my freezer at all times because I love both of them that much. But the cheese, all of their toppings are amazing. It's literally my favorite frozen pizza. So definitely make sure to check it out. Heartbroken Hog. What's up, y'all? Hope everyone is having an awesome start to the week. Thanks so much for coming, Heartbroken Hog. Appreciate you. Alex Wong, good to see you, my friend, Pack-A-Day podcast member. What do you think it would actually take for Joseph to win the kicking battle? Feels like if it's anywhere close, they'll give it to Anders. I agree with that, Alex. I think Anders is going to get every benefit of the doubt if this is close. We did see Greg Joseph take the lead today. He has one more made kick in camp so far than what Anders does. The thing I like about Anders, obviously, is a really big leg. The second thing is it pops off of his foot, with ease. And I just think he is kicking so much more comfortably. The miss that he had today, the snap was a little bit high, which is noteworthy as well. But to your greater point here, Alex, I do wholeheartedly believe and agree with you. If this is anywhere near close, it's going to go to Anders. He is younger. He has higher upside. They spent a draft pick on him. He has more controllable years. Just everything would lean towards Anders if it's remotely close. But, Anders would have to probably have one more of those, mid-camp, I don't want to say like meltdowns, but just a stretch of really bad kicking. We've kind of seen that from Anders at different times where he will have this stretch of games or practices where he kicks really well, and then he has those valleys. So it's like peak, valley, and he just really needs to avoid a prolonged stretch of really bad kicking. But right now, both of them have looked good. I think that is, if there's anything that's promising right now, both Greg Joseph and Anders Carlson have kicked well so far. I think we'll get a really great look at family night. I'm sure they're going to do some kicking inside of Lambeau Field with a live rush. I think that'll be very important for both of them. And then, of course, preseason will play a large part in that as well. But if it's close, it's definitely going to go to Anders, would be my guess. Aaron, do you think Tyler Davis and Ben Sims are battling for tight end 3? At this point, who do you take? Seemed like Davis had a lot of ground to make up the first start of camp, but has done some really good stuff. Yeah, this is one I'm really interested by. Ben Sims has had a quieter camp, but he had a really nice year last year, given the role that he had. A little bit of special teams and, of course, more of that run blocking tight end. I think the thing that you have to remember, I sort of look at it this way. With Henry Pearson being released today and with Josiah DeGuara gone, I think you're going to see Kraft, Sims, and Musgrave as maybe the tight ends. And maybe we see Tyler Davis take a little bit more of that H-back role. He played some of that today in camp, but I'm wondering more if it's not actually a tight end 3 battle, if it's more Tyler Davis and or Ben Sims. One of those guys are basically taking Josiah DeGuara's role. So that would kind of be the way that I would lean towards it right now. I think both guys have a great chance of making it. But if it does come down to one or the other, that would be very, very interesting. Tyler Davis has seemed to have received a little bit more playing time. The coaching staff, from special teams coordinators to tight end coach to head coach, cannot say enough about Tyler Davis. obviously a core special teamer, good run blocker, okay out of the backfield as a pass catcher, but whether he's an H back or in line as a tight end, but. Yeah, that's a really, really interesting one. I'm a Ben Sims guy myself, but you guys have known too. I've defended Tyler Davis quite a bit. I think he has a role on this team. If I had to guess right now, I might probably lean towards both of them making it, but that would be interesting if they only had room for one. Miranda, thanks so much for coming. Got to meet you Friday morning before practice started. Thank you for being so kind. I'll be back for family night. Being in Green Bay is always special. Nice to meet you as well, Miranda. As I always say, if ever you see me out and about, anyone always feel free to say hello. Always love meeting everyone. We had someone out there with a Pack a Day podcast shirt on the sidelines today, which you absolutely love to see. It's just been really, really cool. Just having people come up and say that they appreciate the show and watch the show. Those things mean a ton. So Miranda, it was great to meet you. You were super kind as well. And I always love meeting anyone that has made Pack a Day part of their life and daily routine. Like I said, it means the world to me. Jake Brown, any tips for a Packers fan in Pennsylvania trying to get to go to a game at Lambeau? Nothing in particular, Jake. I think sometimes it gets a little bit overblown of like, oh, you can't get Packers tickets. I mean, you can go on any of the ticketing sites and find tickets right now. It just depends on how much you want to spend, of course. You could come day of the game too, and you can usually find some pretty good tickets right before the start of the game. Now, if they start 5-6-0 or something, then yeah, the tickets are probably going to only go exponentially up. But yeah, you can get tickets online. Obviously, flights, you can fly into Appleton or you can fly into Green Bay. Appleton's about 30 minutes from downtown Lambeau. So a little bit more of a, probably an expensive Uber drive to kind of find your way to Green Bay, but it's not going to be anything crazy. So you can fly into either spot. And then, yeah, just picking which game that you want. Yeah, I don't have really anything other than that, but you can definitely find tickets. And the big thing I'll say is it's always worth your while. Never... Yeah, anytime you get to go to Lambeau Field, it's a good day. And I realize if you leave and it's a loss and it sucks, yeah, that sucks the energy out of it a little bit. But that pregame excitement, walking into Lambeau, the entire majesticness of the entire stadium, watching the Packers play, it's always worth it. So yeah, that's probably my biggest recommendation. Just go ahead, do it, find a way to make it work. I can finally attend one of these. Good to see you, Boom Handle. Always appreciate it. Aaron, I've always thought McDuffie was super underrated. Glad to hear he's making some good plays this camp and getting some recognition. Yeah, he is not giving up either the nickel or the base defensive snaps at all so far. Edgerrin Cooper gets a little bit of those nickel snaps. Edgerrin Cooper gets a little bit of those base snaps along with Eric Wilson. But right now, I think if there were a true game this weekend, I think your nickel would legitimately be Isaiah McDuffie and Quay Walker. I think they would probably have a package or two, maybe that Edgerrin Cooper would come in for, or just maybe a play or two here or there to utilize his skill set. And then I think base would be a little bit more interesting. I do wonder if this would be McDuffie, Quay Walker, and then maybe Cooper, probably Cooper in that situation. But Eric Wilson's been battling and has really kept that spot as well. I think that's going to be one to kind of keep an eye on as camp goes on. Does Cooper start taking more of those snaps? Does Hopper get involved in some way? But overall, really nice start for McDuffie. He's given no ground. I can't remember a bad play that he's made. He had one play against Musgrave that Musgrave probably had him beat down the field, and I think the ball wasn't really catchable. It was like McDuffie would have had a chance maybe to make some play on it, but Musgrave definitely had a half a step on him. And if the quarterback in that case, I think it was Clifford, would have just thrown it up to him, I don't think there was anything McDuffie could have done. Obviously, that's a tall ask, literally and figuratively, for McDuffie to try to cover Musgrave one-on-one in any situation. But overall, outside of that, maybe one play, McDuffie's had a very, very nice start to camp. Drew Mosk, good to see you, buddy. Where does Dobbs rank at wide receiver in the NFL? Number 2, like Jair said today, or tied for 51st, like EA Sports said earlier this week. Per usual, my friend, it is always somewhere in the middle. Definitely not in the top 2, definitely not around number 51. But, here's the thing. I talked about it today on the Quick Hits. Romeo's had a really nice start to camp. He looks fantastic. I'm slightly cautious because we've seen a little bit of this from Romeo in training camps before, where the route running looks aggressive, and Matt LaFleur talks about how he does all of the right things at all the right times. He's got great hands. He's plucking the ball out of the air, but we've seen this a little bit, especially last training camp. We saw it though in the playoffs last year, where he was fantastic in the playoffs and really Green Bay's number 1 wide receiver. I do think that this wide receiver group looks up to Romeo. I do think Jair, as he's going out, he always wants to go against the best wide receiver. I think he does believe that that's Romeo Dobbs, and clearly he said so today. Number 2 wide receiver in the league behind Devontae Adams, according to Jair. I do think that this could end up being, if there is a de facto number one wide receiver, right now, I think it's trending a little bit towards Romeo, but Christian is going to be clearly in that conversation. Dontavian, Jaden Reed. It's just a really deep wide receiver group. So like I said, Justice somewhere in the middle, but always fun conversation. EA Sports already, we've got Xavier McKinney with an 85, which seems ridiculous. Like Jordan Poyer. All right. Jordan Poyer, who I love, really fun player. Jordan Poyer. Like sometimes EA Sports, you need to understand what the NFL is telling you about some of these players. Jordan Poyer, this offseason, at age 33, got a 1 year, $1.99 million contract, less than $2 million on a 1 year contract. Xavier McKinney, I don't know if you guys remember, was a little bit more than that. He got a 4 year, what was it? Oh yeah, $67 million contract this free agency. And if Green Bay didn't get it to him, maybe he doesn't get 67, maybe he gets 65, 64, but it was going to be pretty freaking close to that. So the NFL is telling us they value Xavier McKinney a ton, and Jordan Poyer is just like, he's fine. So maybe EA Sports take that a little bit into consideration and understand that Xavier McKinney should probably be rated at minimum ahead of Jordan Poyer. Gotta love a good old EA Sports conversation. Have been on vacation over the past couple of weeks and missed a lot. So what are 3 key highlights from Packers training camp? Well, I don't know if you heard this, Killer Kenny, but Jordan Love signed a contract extension. That's probably the biggest highlight. And Kenny Clark signing his contract extension might be the other highlight. Defense has been fantastic so far. They've been contesting everything. Obviously, a lot of that was against Sean Clifford and Michael Pratt, etc. But they've looked fantastic. The pressure in the backfield, the run stopping, all of it's looked really, really good so far. I think the bounce back of Eric Stokes, he gave up a touchdown, a couple catches today, but he still looks much, much better. And, I don't know that he's ever going to evolve into a number one, like corner, anything like that, but he looks like he can legitimately be a good number 2 corner, which would be a huge win for this Packers defense. He's off to a really nice start. And then Rashawn Gary has just been a man on a mission. In fact, today might have been the first day of practice, and maybe I just missed one, but I think today might have been the first day of practice where he did not get a sack, at least that I saw. So, but he's been off to an absolute tear so far. So those are probably a few of the key takeaways. But Killer Kenny, you've got a homework assignment. You got to go through and watch all 7 of the training camp recaps so you know exactly what's going on. Or check out today's episode with Paul Brettel, where we kind of go through our stock report, players that are whose stock is up, player whose stock is down. That should give you a pretty good recap as well. Travis, thanks for the great work. What receivers are looking like the top 4 so far? The 4 that you would expect. Definitely so far, Wicks, Dobbs, Reed, and Watson. And I think that's no knock on Bo Melton. He's had a nice start to camp, had a touchdown catch today in red zone, and he's doing some good things. There are a couple of plays where he was open and the quarterbacks just didn't get him the ball. When you have those 4 wide receivers, Reed, Wicks, Watson, and Dobbs, they're going to spend a ton of time with the 1s, which is going to give guys like Bo Melton and Grant Dubose more time with the 2s and Malik Heath more time with the 2s. But that also means you're not getting the consistent quarterback play that you get with Jordan Love either. So sometimes those guys are getting open and the ball's just not getting there or coming their way. But I still think you're probably looking at, again, the top 4 being the top 4, Bo being the 5. And then I do wonder if that number 6 spot is a little bit more up for grabs between, I think specifically Dubose and Heath, but maybe Toure gets his name in that conversation as well. All right, Aaron, do you think we'll end up seeing rotation at the safety spot, or is it better to just stick with 2 guys that can develop chemistry together? Aaron, if I had to guess today, I think we're going to see some packages with Javon Bullard, and I think we're going to see some packages with Evan Williams. I think mostly they're going to want to get both of those guys on the field. And I personally do not believe either will be in play for the true slot position. I think that's going to be Keyshawn. I would be pretty surprised at this point. I'm not saying we couldn't see a couple packages or a couple plays here and there where both, where maybe Evan Williams or Javon Bullard are playing a true slot position. But I think the vast majority of the time, those guys are going to be safeties. And I could see them having different packages and different personnel groups for either of them. We also saw today our first look at a true dime defense, and it was Keyshawn in the slot, Stokes and Valentine on the outside, McKinney deep, and then Javon Bullard and Evan Williams playing a little bit ahead of Xavier McKinney. So a very interesting, unique look at that dime defense with Quay obviously at linebacker and then a 4-man defensive front. But that's an interesting one as well. I just think both of them are too talented to leave one of them off the field full time. I don't think you can just give one of those guys, like, only if we're in dime are you going to see the field. I think you probably, maybe you play Javon Bullard a little bit more in base defense, and maybe you give him obviously some reps in dime, and maybe you give Evan Williams nickel, and that obviously is going to benefit Evan Williams more. He would play more of it, but maybe you could do it something like that way, where I think Bullard's a little bit more the physical player, and maybe he's going to be a little bit better of a run defender. And I think Evan Williams, that great ball skills, and I think is already shown the ability to take the football away. So maybe you get him on the field a little bit more in some obvious passing situations. But whatever they decide, I think both of them are showing well enough that you're going to want to get both those guys on the field so that they can get their feet wet and really start becoming the players that they both have the potential to become. Josh Myers is not a possible trade candidate in any way, shape, or form. I will print out this little message here, put some barbecue sauce on it, and eat it if Josh Myers gets traded. They have very little depth along the offensive line that they would trust already. Josh Myers is going to be the starter at center. I would very much believe that at this point. And even if somehow they decided to go with Sean Ryan at left guard, Morgan at right guard, Jenkins at center, Tom and Walker at the tackles, they would still keep him as the top backup. No question in my mind. So no, Myers not going anywhere. What other sports teams do you like outside of the Packers and Wisconsin teams? Well, Brewers and Bucks, Badgers are all key ones. Liverpool for soccer. Also really love the men's and women's U.S. national teams. I mean, I say love, but the U.S. men's team continues to be a little bit of a disappointment here and there, but those two teams I love watching. Those are probably the main ones. I'm probably missing something as well, but yeah, I mean, I really enjoy UWGB women's basketball. They're always fun to watch, and like almost always a tournament team. College basketball, we'll definitely watch some Marquette and GB, UW Milwaukee, Madison, etc. So yeah, those are kind of the ones. Mostly Wisconsin teams, the national teams for soccer, Liverpool, and that's about it. Justice getting the chance from Ski Singh. Travis, thank you for your great work. Which receivers? So we went through that one. Peyton, at what point does LVN take Preston's starting role? Probably next year, Peyton. I don't think there's any real risk of Preston losing that starting spot. I also don't think it matters. I think they'll rotate those guys in and utilize them when they need to. I think the other thing is the starting spot is more often like a 1st and 10 role, right? And Preston Smith's very, very good at setting the edge in the run game. He's fantastic at it. So I think you would probably want him out there on more obvious rundowns and on your 1st and 10s in case they do want to try to establish the run and get into those 2nd and 5s, 2nd and 4s, etc. So Preston should be the starter, and then you will let LVN and I think Enigbari come along as more rotational pieces, keep them fresh, and then let them come in and hopefully relentlessly rush the passer along with Rashawn Gary, who probably is going to play the most of any of the defensive ends, although they've been pretty cautious. Maybe it was just the ACL thing last year, but they've been pretty cautious in getting too much wear and tear on them and too many plays, which I think is the right move. But I think those guys are going to rotate a lot, and I ultimately don't think it matters too much who starts. But next year's probably the year, and I've said this for like 4 years straight now, of where you potentially look at moving on from Preston. But if Preston's on the team right now, I think he's probably the de facto starter and probably the guy that you want on those 1st and 10s and some more obvious rundowns as well. Have there been any coaches that have impressed you during camp? Who is the loudest, most energetic coach? Coach Ogabasi, the assistant defensive line coach. That dude is a maniac in all the best ways. He is sprinting on the field, celebrating. He has it seems like he has a special soft spot for Jonathan Ford. Anytime Jonathan Ford does something, he's going crazy. They're working the most, I think, to try to get something out of Jonathan Ford, and he's had a really nice start to camp. But Vince Ogabasi has been probably the one that stood out the most. I do think Kirk Olivadatti's, or sorry, not Kirk Olivadotti, that Anthony Campanelli. Kirk Olivadotti was the last one. Anthony Campanelli is doing a nice job with the inside linebackers as well. But yeah, it's tough to like point out specific individual coaches and be like, look what they're doing. But I will say Vince Ogabasi is definitely bringing the energy and the intensity at practice. Hey, Andy, any new takes on Jacobs from today's practice? At his best run of the offseason of training camp, OTAs, and minicamp so far. He had a run where he kind of inside run that he was able to cut to the outside, explode upfield, probably get, I don't know, maybe 30 yards on the play. So definitely his best run of training camp and of the offseason, I guess, so far. But that was a promising sign. Like I said the other day, hadn't really seen any flashes from him quite yet, but that was a really good one. And hopefully that's more of a harbinger of things to come with what he can bring to this team. What does family night look like for you? Is it similar to your approach to a training camp practice, or do you treat it more like a fan game experience? Definitely more like a training camp practice, except instead of on the sidelines, I'm up in the press box. So, I mean, the bummer is that the broadcast version of Family Night is awful. It's awful. Like they don't show almost anything. It feels like the Packers are very hesitant to try to show much of the team activities at all. Like it is really, really poor. So it is super important that, if you want a good view of the Family Night to, when you're covering the team is what I mean, is that you actually go to it. Cause otherwise the experience is brutal. And I know like maybe somebody will have a stream online, but people out of state usually struggle. I've talked about this before. There are things that I get frustrated with sometimes with the Packers, and I understand what they're trying to do. But one of them is canceling the mini camp practice. I think that's ridiculous. Let the fans go and attend mini camp. There's no reason not to. It's 2 practices. It's their first opportunity to go see the team. I know they're not like insanely populated or whatever, but this is again, it's a team that's supposed to be owned by the fans. Please let them go and watch practice. The Family Night, why are you not streaming that on Packers.com? And once again, I understand competitive advantage and you don't want, opposing teams are going to know what's going on anyway. They've probably got a scout in the stands. Like, I don't know, like let your fans, again, that own the team, watch Family Night and let them watch the whole thing. Don't just let them watch little bits and pieces and have it be more about, the commentators and things like that. Let them actually see what's going on in the field. And then, there's a couple other things too. Like, the state secrets of like nobody can videotape any of the team activities. Well, that all sounds good, except you can go on Twitter right now and view almost every play from Packers practice. So what are we doing? If it's not good enough, if the security is not going to be good enough where that stuff continues to happen, then like, why are you not letting just everyone take advantage of it and show some of the fun plays from practice? So once again, the fans can, live with what's going on. And so those are things that I get a little bit disappointed with because this should be more of a fan experience. And by the way, too, this should be mandated by the NFL. The NFL should mandate that every team has to have a certain amount of training camp practices that are open, that fans are allowed to take videos and post them online, that, all of that stuff, because that's the stuff that helps you gain interest in the product, that spreads it even more. And I understand why teams are hesitant to want to put that stuff out there because they feel it's a competitive disadvantage. I just have a hard time believing, Packers 49ers last year had anything to do with what Big B was posting from the stands when he was taking videos of practice. I don't think the 49ers got any huge hints of like, oh, they really like to do this on an end around or something like that. Like, and if that is the case, like if you're running something so often that like it is, you're probably doing it the wrong way anyway. So I don't know. Soapbox off. My apologies, but those are my things of frustration sometimes. On the Stokes interception covering Watson, was that Watson's fault? Are you talking about today? Because I think there was one yesterday that ended practice too, right? No, that was Kalen King yesterday. So my bad. So Stokes was today. Yes. It looked like it was not a great route from Watson. One of the issues with Watson from time to time is it looks like he gives up on routes when he doesn't think he has any chance of getting the ball. We've seen that on deep routes at times where he does not finish his route because he doesn't think that the ball is going to come his way or it wasn't maybe drawn up his way, where if he would have kept going, he would have been, wide open or been able to maybe make a play on the ball. And I think that kind of looked like it in practice today too. That's one of those plays where I don't think there was probably much time left and Jordan was taking a shot at the end zone. From Christian's point of view, I can understand where like Stokes is sitting on it. It's inside. So like by the time Watson broke inside, he's probably looking at Stokes just being there and like, what am I going to do? Like not really having a chance to go make a play anyway. But I would like to see Christian be a little bit more physical and intense and just try to go get the ball no matter what and just finish those routes regardless of whether or not you think the ball is going to come your way. Just go hard, go aggressive, finish it, because I think you're leading yourself to potential incompletions due to not finishing the route, or in this case, maybe you could have broken up the pass and lived to see another down. So I do think that's something that Christian can do a little bit better job of. Who are the plays you're looking forward to seeing this preseason? That's an interesting question. Jordan Morgan is probably a huge one because I think he has a legitimate chance to start at right guard. That's a huge one. Kind of want to see what Carl Brooks and Devontae Wyatt do. Brooks had a really nice day today. Wyatt's been a little bit more quiet, although he did have a win today as well. But he's been a little quiet. I want to see what those guys do. Edgerrin Cooper, Tyron Hopper. Hopefully Marshawn Lloyd can get out there. I want to see some Katana Ladapo, the rookie safeties. I want to see how the kicking competition goes in preseason. Yeah, I think those are probably some of the key ones that are off the top of my head, at least. Which receivers do you see having the potential to be an S to A tier type guy? I think honestly, it is within the realm for all 5 of them to get there. I don't, obviously most, if maybe not all of them, will not, but I do think it is within the belief system that you could see those guys get there. I think the world of Bo Melton. I think he has so much talent. I don't think he realizes how good he can be yet. Dontavian Wicks is a stud. We heard Steve Smith talk about him the other day. He has every right. Christian Watson, we know the upside there. Romeo Doubs has been acting as the kind of number 1 wide receiver, and he's looked great in camp. And then we know Jaden Reed has a ton of talent as well. So I think it's just who steps up and takes it, because it's probably going to be one. I think one of the guys really steps up and ultimately becomes that kind of alpha. But who is it? And who does it fastest? And if more than one do, awesome. But I think they all have a lot of potential and possibility there. All right, we get a lot of questions piling up. We'll still go through right now. Fly to MKE and enjoy the drive. You could do that as well. Milwaukee. So anytime for me, when I'm flying out of the Green Bay area, I check Green Bay, I check Appleton, I check Milwaukee, I check Madison. I also will a lot of times fly out of Chicago, the 2 airports in Chicago. I'll also spend a lot of time. Actually, when I just went on my trip to San Fran, I flew out of Minneapolis. So a lot more direct flights out of Chicago, Milwaukee, and Minneapolis than you're going to get out of Green Bay and Appleton, although Appleton definitely has some as well. But I look all over and just see what the best option is. So definitely a lot of options around Green Bay. All right. So Josh Jacobs, 2022 Josh Jacobs, or what? I kind of mentioned yesterday, it's so far he's looked a little bit more like 2023 Josh Jacobs, but the run he had today looked a lot more like 2022 Josh Jacobs. Level of concern if Tom or Walker miss any time during the season. In the season, not a ton. And the reason I say that is like they have had guys like Yash Nyman come in and step up and play that role and be fine and be able to mostly function within their offense. And whether that's a Kadeem Telford or if Jordan Morgan has to kick out, I think there's enough options that they can find somebody to fill that spot where they don't have to change the offense entirely. Is it ideal? No. Would I wish it for any long period of time? Absolutely not. But you remember too, if Elton can potentially kick out if you need it, they do have some options there for players who could play outside. You just don't want it during playoff time. And we kind of saw that last year when Zach Tom went out and then they didn't really have an answer for Nick Bosa on that left side. That definitely changed some of that 49ers game as well. So I just hope that those guys are healthy come playoff time. That'd be my bigger concern. How does Morgan look so far at right guard? What do you think he'll need to do to beat Ryan out clean for the job? Yeah, I think he just needs to be at or near where Sean Ryan is at and just show a level of consistency and consistent improvement. But I think he has every chance to win it. In fact, if I were probably betting on it right now, I think I would probably go Jordan Morgan wins the right guard spot to start camp. But I do think it's going to be a battle. I do think Sean Ryan will still compete there. I don't think it's a guarantee by any means. But again, I think consistency is going to be the big key for Morgan. Can he just settle down into that right guard spot? Remember, he's not only just learning a new position, he's learning a new side of the line. So he's going from tackle to guard and from the left side to the right side. That's a lot for a guard to take in. I still wonder a little bit if maybe it wouldn't have been better if they would have had Ryan and Morgan compete at left guard to keep him on the left side and move Elton over to right guard. But clearly they wanted to keep Elton the way that he was, which I understand too. You don't want to mess with it too much, but I maybe would have tried to go in that direction a little bit more. But yeah, I think he has every right to go and earn that job. And like I said, betting today, I'll go Jordan Morgan. Is there a lesser known wide receiver that you think is above Malik Heath from what you've seen? From when I was there, Heath wasn't doing well. Yeah, I started to talk about these last couple of days of Grant Dubose is starting to make a name for himself. And Heath has not had a great start to camp. It's not been anything awful, egregious, anything like that, but hasn't come up with many big plays. And part of that, again, was due to the poor quarterback play early in camp. But he's also had a couple drops. He had a play where he lined up in the wrong spot. So yeah, I just want to see a little bit more from Malik. I still think he can be a big time contributor for this team if given the opportunity. But Grant Dubose is making some plays. He had a great catch today in the back of the end zone and red zone with what was Sean Clifford's best throw of training camp so far. So yeah, and Grant Dubose 2 days ago, a great deep crossing pattern that was a big play. So yeah, Dubose, I would say if you were just going off of camp so far, you would say Dubose is ahead of Heath. Now, Heath played well last year for Green Bay. Dubose was on the practice squad all year, so all of that's going to factor in. But if you were just going off of training camp, you would say Grant Dubose was the number 6 wide receiver. All right, Chanel. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. Is there a world where the Packers trade for Devontae by the deadline if the Packers start super hot and the Raiders start poorly? No, I really don't think so. I don't think Green Bay has any appetite for that contract. I don't think they have any appetite for upsetting their wide receiver depth chart, and especially if they're playing well. If they're playing well, they don't need Devontae. And what I mean by that is like they right now have a beautiful system where they can call plays. They have different flavors of wide receiver for everything. And Jordan's not specifically going like, I got to go to Devontae on this play. Who's ever open, who's ever the play is designed for and who's ever open is where Jordan's going to go with the ball. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And all of these guys are talented. And now what are you going to do? Are you going to make Devontae the number one, of course, when you bring him in and make that trade? And now you have, what? Dobbs maybe go to 2, Watson go to 3. Now Reed's your 4, Wicks is your 5, or, it just ends up you almost end up in a worse situation. And now again, Bo Melton's your 6, Malik Heath is probably, or Grant Dubois is no longer even on the roster. No, wide receiver they are good at. They will not add again. And the other thing too, they are the envy of the league. They have 5 or 6 wide receivers that are really good that they are combined paying nothing to. It's like less than 10 million for all of their wide receivers combined. Adding a huge contract for an aging wide receiver that had just a couple of years ago specifically wanted to get out of Green Bay, no chance. Absolutely no chance. Ski, were you most excited about, the young tight ends last year or the young safeties this year? That's a great question. I would say at this point, meaning 1 week into training camp, I would say I was much more excited about the safeties this year than I was 1 week into the tight ends last year, just because Kraft was still super raw at that point. I was still really excited about it, but he was very raw. And, Ben Sims wasn't even on the roster. And Luke Musgrave, you saw some of the flashes already, but young tight ends take usually some time to really develop and kind of come into their own. And these safeties have just stepped in and looked really good from day one. So I would say more excited from 1 week into training camp, the safeties over where the tight ends were last year. Do you think Carrington Valentine has had a good camp so far? Yes, couple completions, big plays that he's given up. But he's also come up with some interceptions, some tip balls. So I think it's good. I do think Stokes has outperformed him so far, though. I think it's maybe a little bit closer than maybe the Packers are having, them compete for. It's been completely Stokes with the 1s and Valentine with the 2s. But it's not been like this unbelievable, like, oh my God, Valentine's amazing. But I would put it more on the side of good. And like I said, I just think Eric Stokes has been a little bit better so far. Let's get to some of these super chats really quick. Thank you so much for these guys. Always appreciate it. Andy, thanks for the awesome camp coverage, taking it to another level this year. Not hearing a thing about Devontae Wyatt. What have you seen? He did have a really quick win today. It was like a millisecond. He was just in the backfield at an insta sack is how I like to call it. But I did say today too that it's been a little bit quiet for Wyatt. I would like him to see him take that next step. And I thought this defense was going to be a great opportunity. One of the things is there's been so much pressure from this defensive line. Maybe some of his have just kind of got lost in translation a little bit. The entire defensive line is playing very, very well, and he is a piece of that. And sometimes, again, it's tough to catch everything. But I'd like to see, what we saw today, those quick wins from Devontae. A few more of those would be very nice and very pleasant going forward. Allison, thanks for the super chat here. I will keep our receiver, Christian Watson. Can we get him for what the Raiders wanted? OBJ. I will be keeping our receiver, Christian Watson. Can we get him for what the Raiders wanted? I'm not exactly sure what you mean by that second half, Allison. But as far as keeping Christian Watson, he's obviously under contract this year. He's under contract next year. And then I think you get into a very interesting situation with these wide receivers, because in 2 years, you have Dobbs and Watson that are be scheduled to be free agents, but you'll still have Dontavian Wicks. You'll still have Jaden Reed. Theoretically, if somehow he makes the team, he'll either have one of the other guys, Grant Dubois or Malik Heath as well. This offseason, you could draft a wide receiver potentially that could be in that conversation as well. And you have Bo Melton that would still be under team control. I think by that time he'd be a restricted free agent. But there's a world in which you could just be like, yeah, we're paying Jordan Love, 40, 50 million per year at this point. We're not going to spend a bunch of money on Dobbs and Watson, and we can get away with that because we've got Wicks and Reed and Melton and a rookie and Dubois, and we feel like those 5 are going to be really good still. And then the year after that, you've got Reed and Wicks becoming free agents. So how they kind of go about trying to keep all of those wide receivers and which ones they keep, which ones they move on from. The other thing I wouldn't put past the Packers next year The one thing that they will not want, now they will potentially get a compensatory pick if one of these guys leaves, but they could look at a situation next offseason of being like, hey, can we get something legitimate for Christian or Romeo in a trade? Like something really good. And if they could, you might make that trade knowing that you're not going to be able to probably re-sign both of them. And you could look at the roster and say, hey, if we can get like a second round pick for a Christian Watson, let's just say they can get like a second round pick for Watson, knowing that maybe they're only going to keep him for one more year. And he's only got 1 year left on his deal. Cheap contract for the team acquiring him. So you could easily see if he has a nice year this year, some team be willing to give a second or maybe even more for Watson. If he had a great year this year, maybe even more than that, although maybe then it's less likely you want to give him up. But if you do that, you still have Dobbs, Wicks, Reed, Melton, Dubose, and now you've got extra draft capital. And now maybe you go out and get a couple more wide receivers in the draft, which we know Green Bay's very good at. And these wide receiver classes are just constantly stacked. And maybe you re-sign Dobbs is the one that you re-sign in that situation, and you still end up in a really good, situation, and you get something then in return rather than just 1 year of that wide receiver and then some sort of comp pick the year after. And you would also, bear the risk of, what if, Watson has a nice year this year and some teams offering a second round pick, but then in his fourth year, he's injured all over again. And it really ruins his free agency value. Green Bay doesn't re-sign him. Some other team does, but you only get like a 6th round comp pick. Like, I think the wide receiver situation next year will be very, very interesting to sort of keep an eye on. Do they extend either Watson or Dobbs? Do they extend both? How does that affect Reed and Wicks and Melton? Like, it's going to be very interesting. It's a good problem to have, but it's going to be an interesting situation to navigate. Most State of Minnesota, and thank you so much for doing that. You are the best. Hopefully our 5 new members will enjoy the extra content. For those of you that are Hall of Fame or All Pro members, we have an extra special episode for you guys tomorrow night. We're going to do a live show, but everyone's going to be able to come in and actually be on camera as well, at least the first 9 people. And we're going to do some more stuff like that in the future as well. And then, of course, we've got our members Q&A on Thursday this week for all members, and should be doing an extra bonus episode, and we might get a bonus episode from Ross this week as well. All right, where are we leaving off here? All right, let me just get back here for a second. Ross Uglum's in the chat. Good to see you, buddy. I'm just talking about you. Let's see. I'm going to go through probably just the, let me see, go back here for a second. Just go through the members chats before we get out of here. All right, so Gary's getting tired. No, I don't think Gary's getting tired yet. Like I said, maybe he didn't have a sack today, but he's been absolutely fantastic. All right. Adam Stanky, are you going to be doing weekly chats with Mike Wall this season? I will be. So everyone as of now that we had on last year, I'm not positive on Sam yet, on Sam Monson, but Mike will be back. Paul Brettel will be back. Justice will be back. Carmen will be back. Perry, I believe Alex as well will be back. Perry and Alex on Sunday nights for Monday's episode. So every group that we had last year, except the one I'm still kind of not 1,000,000% sure on, is Sam Monson, but keep you guys posted on that. And that's not because anything's like offering. I haven't had the conversation yet. Is there just more emphasis on the passing game at this point in camp, or is the running game really not great right now? And that's why we aren't hearing much about it. Talked about this a bit the other day. Now that pads are on, we'll get a little bit more from the running game, but before pads are on, there's like nothing to like, there's no pads on. They only call certain run plays in those situations. And there's no tackling. Like there's just nothing that you can really glean from the running game in those situations. So Emmanuel Wilson had a great run today. Josh Jacobs had a great run today. Now that the pads are on, we're seeing the running game develop a little bit more, and that should continue. Those things usually take a time for the offense to get into a little bit more of a rhythm. So yeah, I think we'll start hearing more and more about it. And like I said, Emmanuel Wilson and Josh Jacobs both had big runs today. All right, Ross, what do we got here? First time, long time. Now that Love is back, how long until Pratt starts taking reps with the twos, considering Clifford's struggles? Any new shows on the Pack-A-Day Network to plug? Yes, if you guys don't know, Packer Report TV, Ross Uglum's going to be back doing multiple episodes per week through the course of the season up until the time where the daily draft comes back. All different topics. When he was at camp, he did some training camp topics. He's got some really fun stuff coming up. A great interview about Michael Pratt coming up. Not sure when those episodes are going to launch quite yet, but Ross has already got 3 in the hopper. But yeah, probably multitude of episodes each week, somewhere probably between 3 and 4, maybe 5 sometimes. Some of those will be bonus for members only. Other will be live with everything else, and you can always, of course, find them on the audio station as well. But Ross is killing it, and we'll have to keep an eye on that number 2 battle, Ross. Although it definitely seems like the offensive coordinator and head coach are still a little bit hesitant to maybe put too much more on Michael Pratt's plate at this point. Derek just got in late. Maybe you've already addressed it. I'm super excited about LVN in his second year. Do you see him being a game changer this year? I don't want to go too far and say game changer, things like that, but he's had 2 back-to-back nice practices. Let's see if he can do the old Mike McCarthy and stack success at these practices, one after the other. He's done so far this week. Let's see if he can kind of continue that moving forward. But nice start for him. Good against the run game. Has been making some plays in the pass game. But game changers, a different level of player, different category of player. Might take a little bit before LVN gets there, but that's still the hope, is that at some point he gets there. Made it to a happy hour. Hi, Andy. Thank you so much for being a member. Sap Gooey, appreciate you, and hello as well. All right, what else we got? Whiskey 61. If nothing else, let me watch the thing through the shareholder site. Yeah, that would be a nice thing too. And Andy Herman rant. Nice. You're welcome. Joseph Bell. Hey, Andy, how was McDuffie look this camp? I've heard a lot of Wilson and Quay, some Edrin, but nothing on McDuffie. Appreciate you as always. Yeah, we just talked about it a little bit, Joseph, but he's had a really nice start to camp. In fact, he is right now trending to be the starting nickel and starting base linebacker. So we'll see if Cooper and or Hopper get more in that conversation, but he's been really, really good so far. You can see he fits very well within this defense, knows a little bit from working with Jeff Hafley in the past at Boston College, and has really taken to it. He looks like he is definitely better than he was at any point in the Joe Barry defense, which we're seeing a little bit of from a lot of different players. Chad, Carl Brooks is at a not slower, just a quieter start to camp, but he had a really nice day today. Had a really nice play where against Jordan Morgan, he completely reset the line of scrimmage in the run game, probably got 4 or 5 yards in the backfield. And then the very next play against Morgan as well, quick win and, some immediate pressure into the backfield. So Carl's doing some good things. Not anything super flashy so far, but nice start for him, and had a really nice day today. Whiskey, at what point does Kraft missing time impact how much 12 they will use in the regular season? I don't think it's going to affect them a ton. They used a lot of 12 to open last season. It was not a lot, but they used a decent amount, and it was Ben Sims in his first game as a Packer. So I don't think it's going to affect them too much. They also have Tyler Davis if they want to keep him. We'll see when Kraft can get back and hopefully ingrained, and hopefully he's ready to go week 1. But if he's not ready to go the first couple of weeks of the season, or just isn't integrated yet, if that ends up being the case, yeah, they have so many different things that they can do. So I'm not worried about it, but I definitely think once Kraft and Musgrave are both ready to go, we'll see a good chunk of 12 personnel. What do you think Kenny Clark's extension means for TJ Slayton in the long term? The idea of also paying Slayton serious money seems like a stretch, especially if Brooks and Wooden improve. Yeah, it definitely affects the calculus in some way. For Slayton, I do think his contract will be its own thing. You usually have a budget for what you want to spend on specific positions. They're going to have to make a decision on a Devontae Wyatt 5th-year option. Brooks and Wooden obviously still young, but they're not exactly, they're different types of players than TJ Slayton. TJ Slayton, the bigger 330 guy, and obviously Wooden and Brooks probably more in that 280, 290 range. So totally different types of players. I think it depends. If he has an amazing year this year, like the odds that they can give him top of the market money are probably pretty slim. If he has a solid year this year and they can get him back on a solid deal, possible. If he has a bad year this year and he's on the cheap and maybe Green Bay thinks he can bounce back and have a better year, maybe, but I think a lot of it's going to be dependent upon what his market is. And my guess is we probably see Slayton go to another team, but I would also guess that they'd like to have him back if they could work something out. Donald Jackson, do you believe that the Packers safety room could duplicate what the receivers tight ends did last year, getting significantly younger and better at the same time? Donald, I will be beyond stunned if this safety group isn't significantly better from a season ago. First of all, not a difficult task. To be fair, I thought Savage, Owens, Ford, that group, Anthony Johnson Jr., for what they were, a not great group of safeties, collectively weren't terrible. Like, it was below average, but for the most part, it was kind of fine. I expected, quite frankly, a lot worse. And it ended up being okay, which is fine. If this group, though, isn't significantly better, just Xavier McKinney alone, Xavier McKinney in a sandwich, are probably better at, the two safety spots than what you had a season ago. So McKinney in and of itself is going to be huge. And then they go out and get Bullard and Evan Williams, who both look really good so far. Anthony Johnson Jr.'s had a nice start to camp, but we haven't even got to see Kitano Ladapo yet. His first day back today, just doing individual work. So very, very excited about these young safeties. All right. What else we got here? Heartbroken. Thanks, bro. I don't know what that means, but all right. Sorry, I missed the conversation. Ken Hansen, Andy, great seeing you at practice today. Love watching your intensity while viewing the practice with your expert eyes. Yeah, I've had people tell me. I was Mike Heller. I was on the Mike Heller show, and when OTAs, I think, were starting, they were asking Mike or like me of like, who I'm like looking forward to seeing on the sidelines. And there's a lot of people I do look forward to seeing, but I'm like, also, I'm kind of a little bit of like just intent on practice. And Heller's like, yeah, I do not go up to Andy when he is on the sidelines for practice because he is laser focused in. I joke at times that there could be a tornado behind me and I probably wouldn't know that it was happening because I'm just usually very laser focused on practice and getting all the information out there. So, but no, Ken, great to see you. And thanks for saying hello. Most State of Minnesota, on a scale from 1 to 10, how hyped should we actually be for this defense after the great start they've had in camp? My answer is going to be the same to everything. Never too high, never too low. And I think that, even yesterday I went through, it's going to be funny. Actually, I was going to talk about this today and I will still talk about it on the video for tomorrow. But yesterday, who are my sells? Sean Clifford had his best day of camp today. Josh Jacobs had his biggest run of camp today. Offensive line, I thought actually, played a little bit better today. So like you go through these guys that are maybe struggling a little bit. Guess what? Today's a new week. And some of those guys end up showing up a little bit better. I thought I had one more. Oh, and then I had Sella and Kitano Ladapo too, because he hasn't been able to get out there. And who's out there today? Kitano Ladapo. So it's like every single person that I had on my sell list, Clifford, Jacobs, the O-line, and Oladapo, were basically significantly better today than they'd been in previous training camps, or up to this point at least so far. So I never try to get too high on some of these guys. Evan Williams, Javon Bullard. I promise you, there's going to be a learning curve. I promise you, there will be mistakes. I promise you, there will be frustration. And it's not like, I don't think either of those guys are just going to go out and be like, wow, well, yep, they're Pro Bowlers right now. Like, it's going to take time. I wouldn't get too hyped up about either because they're rookies. And guess what? Rookies will more often than not break your heart at times. And I'm still excited about Edgerrin Cooper, even though he hasn't broken the starting lineup on anything yet. Still super excited about him. But I'm also tempered expectations. Same with Tyron Hopper. Marshawn Lloyd looked amazing in OTAs and minicamps. Let's see what he looks like when pads come on. And it goes both ways. Anyone that I am still, like Andre Dillard, any of these guys, let's give them time. Let's see what they can do. I hope all these guys bounce back. And no matter how excited I am about how the defense has played so far, that first 3rd and 15 that Green Bay gives up a huge play on, it'll be all fire Jeff Hafley for everyone immediately. So never too high, never too low. Let's see how things play out. And let's hope that this offense and this defense are playing their best brand of football come January and February, and they can make a run at this thing. That's what I'm hoping for, because they're going to lose, I don't know, 5-6 games probably this year. And there's going to be some super frustrating moments. It's still a very young team. I think they're still going to be very good. I think there's going to be a lot of super exciting moments. And I think this is a team that can make some noise come playoff time, but they're going to have to go through those, those learning curves. And look at what the 2010 team, right? What was their record? Like 10-6, something like that, or maybe it was even 9-7. What was it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10-6, 10-6 that year. So lost to Chicago. I was at that Washington game in Washington where they lost by 3 in overtime. That was brutal. Lost to Miami the following week by 3 in overtime. Lost to Atlanta, then lost to Detroit 7-3, and lost to New England 31-27. Those last two with Matt Flynn at quarterback, but lost 7 games that year. And the 96 team, right? Lost to the 3-13 Indianapolis Colts that year. Sometimes it takes those moments of frustration. Sometimes it takes those really frustrating moments for the team to learn and get better. And I think that's all going to be part of the year. So never too high, never too low. You're welcome. Go Pack Go. Thanks again for that. Allison, thank you so much again. Meant to say, can we keep our receiver Christian Watson? Me 18 years or longer, what the Raiders got for him for wax. Allison, I'm so sorry. I'm still not understanding. So you messed up your message. I don't know if you don't have to do a super chat, but if you can get one more in really quick, I'm still not super understanding 18 years or longer. I don't think Christian Watson's going to be on the team 18 years, but I don't think that's what you meant. Maybe 18 mil per year or more. Yeah, I'm so sorry, Allison, but if you get another one, I'll definitely try to answer it. All right. Donald, Glover, Jennings, Telford, Caleb Jones, Tenuta, Newman, Dillard. Packers need at least one of these guys, probably two, to be able to step up amid injuries. Do any of them look trustworthy to you? No, not yet. Not yet. I'm not saying they can't. Telford's had some good moments. Caleb Jones has had a couple moments here and there, but long ways to go for those guys. And I would put Monk on there as well. Jacob Monk needs to definitely be in on that as well. He needs to be able to step up at some point. And I would say that I haven't seen enough to trust him at this point either. So to me, you've got your starting five, and then you're probably your six, right? Your starting five, and then whoever loses the Jordan Morgan, Sean Ryan battle that you feel okay about. But again, Morgan's young and Sean Ryan has not shown a level of consistency yet. There's still some question marks, a lot of question marks, quite frankly, along that offensive line. So yeah, I agree with you though, Donald. There are going to be some guys that have to step up. Rashawn Gary, all pro finally. Dylan, thighs still tree trunks, even being spry. He looks incredible. I'll just put it that way. AJ looks incredible. He's in phenomenal shape, low body fat, absolutely chiseled, looks quicker than we've ever seen him, in my opinion. And he's doing all the right things right now. And Gary, all pro. I think the hard thing is we are in a golden age of pass rushers. You look at some of the guys last year. Actually, I didn't want to do that. Let's see here. Sorry, 1 second. But you look at some of the guys last year that were, you have to beat out Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons, Nick Bosa, Max Crosby, TJ Watt, Khalil Mack, DeMarcus Lawrence. I mean, that's just 7 right there. That's a really tough 7. Josh Hines-Allen is fantastic. Aiden Hutchinson. Like that's 9 guys that are, Will Anderson's going to make a ton of noise this year as defensive end for the Texans. I'd be shocked if he doesn't. Like, it is a really, really tough group. And that was 10 guys right there, by the way. Like, he's got to get himself into like the top 4 to be a first or second team all pro. And that's like Garrett, Parsons, Bosa, Crosby, Watt is 5. So good luck. Who is the first team, 2023 all pros? I want to see who actually made the first and second. Oops, this is probably a lot easier. Defensive end. So Garrett and Watt made first team. Parsons and Crosby made second team. Nick Bosa wasn't even on the all-pro team. So I will say likely not. I mean, even if he plays up to their level, like those guys are going to get the nod because they've been doing it longer. So it's a really, really tough group to break. But, as long as he plays anywhere near that, I mean, you're thrilled. Who cares if he gets the award or not? But he's looking fantastic so far. I hope you're having a blessed night, Andy. Thank you, Sideline Report. Rank the running back room best to least best. I mean, I'll probably just go chalk here, but I think Jacobs, Lloyd, Dillon, Wilson, Howard, and then the heck's the guy, Merriweather, probably be my ranking so far. All right, friends, that is going to do it for me today. Sorry, Allison, I don't think you had another chat that came in, but hopefully I can get to it next time. Is Rashawn Gary better than Luigi's Pizza? Obviously not. They're equals. Like Luigi's Pizza is the Rashawn Gary of frozen pizzas. It's amazing. If Manuel's cut, can he make the practice squad? I think they'll try their best to get him back on. No question about it. But there's so many running backs. They probably do get him back, would be my guess. All right, friends, that's going to do it for me today. Thank you so much for attending. Thank you for the super chats. You're the absolute best. Like I said, all pro and Hall of Fame members will get that extra special get together tomorrow night, which I'll be sending more information out about. So if you want to sign up to be an all pro or Hall of Fame member, now would be a great time to do so. And then members Q&A will be Thursday night, 7 p.m. Central Time. And then that'll likely do it for live shows this week. And then next week, we'll have our members Q&A and another happy hour, hopefully next Friday. See you guys soon. You're the best. Until next time. And as always, go Pack Go.